Hello, story lovers. Tonight we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat. Comment below where you're watching from, and if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe. Share it with someone who loves a powerful love story, and tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin. The fluorescent lights of JFK. Airport buzzed like dying insects as Emma Sterling dragged herself through the terminal. 3 days in Chicago had drained every ounce of energy from her bones. The carousel spun its endless dance of identical black suitcases while she nursed her third cup of bitter coffee. Watching through exhausted eyes, her phone buzzed with client demands that could burn in hell for all she cared tonight. At 28, she'd built her interior design studio from nothing. But success came with a price that felt heavier each day. The familiar weight of loneliness pressed against her chest as she thought about returning to her empty Brooklyn apartment. Sleek black suitcase rolled past, silver hardware catching the harsh light. The leather tag bore initials that looked like hers through the scratched plastic. Close enough. Emma grabbed the handle without a second thought. Desperate to escape this sterile purgatory, back in her apartment, surrounded by the warm textures and plants that somehow survived her chaotic schedule, she clicked open the locks. The scent of expensive leather and cologne hit her first. Crisp white shirts hung with military precision. Charcoal suits that probably cost more than her rent. A platinum watch nestled in black velvet like a sleeping serpent, but it was the leather. A portfolio that made her blood run cold. Cross Industries. Financial documents with numbers that made her head spin. Millions discussed like pocket change. Meanwhile, 42 floors above Manhattan, Nathan Cross stood at his penthouse window, staring at the city's glittering veins. His own stolen suitcase lay open on the conference table, spilling colorful fabric samples across his important contracts. A worn sketchbook filled with room layouts and margin notes written in flowing handwriting. A small pouch labeled emergency chocolate supply in playful letters. He lifted a glass jar marked Lavender Dreams and opened it. The gentle fragrance invaded his sterile world of steel and power, soft and calming in a way that felt almost obscene in this corporate temple. Emma was halfway through reheated soup when her phone rang. A known number, but something made her answer. Hello, this is Emma Sterling. Duh. The voice was deep, controlled, carrying the weight of absolute authority. My name is Nathan Cross. I believe we have each other's luggage. The spoon clattered in two. Her bowl? Oh my God, you're serious? I thought someone was pranking me. Your suitcase is like something from a movie. It's all expensive and intimidating. I need it back tonight. There are important documents inside. Emma glanced at the clock. Past 8. I was planning to put on my pajamas and pretend the outside world doesn't exist. I'll send a car. Absolutely not. Her independent streak flared. I don't know you from anyone. For all I know, you're some creep who saw my name on a luggage tag. A pause. When he spoke again, his voice held something that might have been amusement. Leather portfolio containing the Morrison account contracts. A platinum Rolex Submariner. And probably some very confused reactions to whoever opened a designer's emergency chocolate stash. Despite herself, Emma laughed. Okay, you passed the test. But I'm not meeting you anywhere private. There's a coffee shop called Grind Coffee on 5th Avenue. Public, well-lit, full of witnesses if you turn out to be a serial killer. I'm not a serial killer. That's exactly what a serial killer would say. For the first time in years, Nathan found himself smiling after a business call. This Emma Sterling was definitely not what he'd expected. 9 tomorrow morning, Emma said. And Nathan, bring my emergency chocolate supply? I'm running dangerously low. The line went dead, leaving Nathan staring at the jar of Lavender Dreams, wondering what the hell he'd gotten himself into. Asterisk Grind Coffee hummed with morning energy, steam rising from espresso machines like incense in a temple of caffeine addiction. Emma arrived early, claiming a corner table with clear sight lines to both exits. Old habits from a childhood that taught her to always have an escape route. She'd chosen her armor carefully this morning. Black jeans that hugged her curves, a silk blouse that said professional but approachable, and boots that could run or kick, depending on the situation. The expensive suitcase sat beside her like a sleeping predator. Nathan Cross walked through the door at exactly 9 o'clock. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that looked like he'd run his fingers through it, and eyes the color of storm clouds. It's the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers, if magazines specialized in beautiful, dangerous men. He moved through the crowded cafe like he owned it, which he probably did. When those storm gray eyes found hers across the room, Emma felt something electric shoot down her spine. Trouble. This man was pure, undiluted trouble. Emma Sterling. He slid into the seat across from her, and she caught his scent. Expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more primal. You're not what I expected. Let me guess. You thought I'd be some frumpy decorator with paint under her fingernails? His mouth curved in what might have been a smile, something like that. She pushed his suitcase toward him. Your corporate secrets are safe. Though I have to ask, do you really make that much money, or are you compensating for something? Nathan's laugh was low, rich, and completely unexpected.
Direct.
I like that. Most people don't. Emma accepted her worn duffel bag, checking that her sketchbook was still inside. They preferred their conversations wrapped in polite bullshit. I'm not most people. No, I imagine you're not. She studied his face, noting the fine lines around his eyes, the way his jaw tightened when he thought she wasn't looking. You're older than I expected, 34. Ancient by most standards, just experienced. The words slipped out before she could stop them, and heat flooded her cheeks. Nathan's eyes darkened, and Emma felt like prey being circled by a predator. Your sketches are good, he said, changing the subject with the skill of a man accustomed to controlling conversations. The living room design for the Patterson account? I looked at it. Emma's spine straightened. You look through my private work? You look through my financial documents? That's different. Your stuff was just lying there, intimidating and mysterious. My sketchbook is personal. Your notation about windows framing life instead of just light. What did you mean? The question caught her off guard. Men like Nathan Cross didn't ask about her design philosophy. They usually wanted to know her rates and how quickly she could make their spaces look expensive. Most people install windows to let in light, she said carefully. But windows should connect you to the world outside. They should make you feel part of something bigger, not trapped behind glass. Trapped. Nathan's voice went quiet and something flickered behind his eyes. Pain, maybe, or recognition. You know the feeling. I live on the 42nd floor. Everything looks small from up there, including people. Their eyes met across the small table, and Emma felt the air between them shift. Charge, whatever this was, it was bigger than a simple luggage mix-up. Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went hard, corporate mask sliding back into place. I have to go. Of course you do. Emma stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. Back to your tower in the sky, Emma. Her name on his lips sounded different. Dangerous, have dinner with me tonight. I don't think that's a good idea. Neither do I. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his body heat. Say yes anyway. Emma's rational mind screamed warnings, but her body betrayed her, leaning into his gravitational pull. Why? Because you're the first person in 5 years to call me out on my bullshit. Because you keep emergency chocolate and lavender dreams in your suitcase? Because I can't stop thinking about what other secrets you're hiding. His fingers brushed hers as he handed her a business card with his personal number written on the back. The contact sent electricity shooting up her arm. 8 o'clock. I'll pick you up. I told you, I don't do cars from strangers. Then meet me at Lucinda's on the Upper East Side. It's public, it's well lit, and full of witnesses if I turn out to be a billionaire serial killer. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, Emma found herself nodding. Fine, but I'm ordering. The most expensive thing on the menu? I'd be disappointed if you didn't. Nathan walked away, leaving Emma standing in the coffee shop, with his business card burning in her palm, and the certainty that her life had just taken A sharp turn into very dangerous territory. Lucinda's was the kind of restaurant where politicians made deals and marriages ended over dessert. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over white tablecloths, and conversations conducted in expensive whispers. Emma felt underdressed in her simple black dress until she saw Nathan's expression when she walked through the door. He stood when she approached, and the gesture felt both old-fashioned and possessive, like he was claiming territory. "You look beautiful." The words were simple, but the way he said them made her pulse quicken. "You clean up well yourself?" And he did. Shh. The perfectly tailored suit emphasized his broad shoulders and lean waist. It was his eyes that held her attention, storm gray and intense, like he was trying to read her soul. The wine was older than she was, the conversation flowing as smoothly as the vintage Bordeaux. Nathan asked about her childhood, her dreams, the scar on her wrist from a broken picture frame when she was 12. Emma found herself sharing stories she'd never told anyone, drawn in by his complete attention. "What about you?" she asked, over dessert that tasted like sin and probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Where did Nathan Cross come from?
His
Jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Foster care. Aged out of the system at 18 with nothing but a high school diploma and a chip on my shoulder. That must have been terrifying. It was liberating, but his voice suggested otherwise. No one to disappoint, no one to let down. Just me against the world. Lonely, Emma observed. I prefer the term self-sufficient. Same thing, dressed up in expensive cologne. Nathan's laugh was sharp. You don't pull your punches, do you? Life's too short for polite lies. Emma set down her wine glass, studying his face in the candlelight. Besides, I think you've had enough people tell you what you want to hear. And what do I want to hear? That you're successful, powerful, that money can buy you anything you need. She leaned forward slightly. But it can't buy you what you want, can it? The question hung between them like a loaded weapon. Nathan's eyes went dark, predatory, and Emma felt a thrill of fear mixed with something that might have been desire. Think you know what I want? I think you want someone to see through the suits and the money and the corporate fortress. Someone who'll call you on your bullshit and stay anyway. Dangerous assumptions, Emma. I'm beginning to think I like danger. Nathan signaled for the check, but his eyes never left hers. Come home with me. The words hit her like a physical blow. Direct, commanding, completely inappropriate for a first date. Emma should have been offended, should have thrown her wine in his face and walked out. Instead, she felt heat pool low in her belly. That's quite an assumption. It's not an eye. Assumption, it's a request. He leaned back in his chair, but his posture suggested a cat about to pounce. I want to show you my view from the 42nd floor. It's just the view that depends entirely on you. Emma's rational mind cataloged all the reasons this was a terrible idea. She didn't know him. He was clearly dangerous. Rich men like Nathan. Cross collected women like trophies, discarding them when the novelty wore off. But her body was singing a different song. When was the last time a man had looked at her like she was something worth conquering? When had she felt this alive, this wanted? One drink, she heard herself say. I'll look at your view, have one drink, and then I'm calling an Uber home. Nathan's smile was pure predator. Of course. But as they walked out of the restaurant together, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just agreed too much more than one drink and a city view. She was walking into Nathan Cross's web, and some dark part of her was eager to see what would happen when she got caught. His hand settled on the small of her back as they approached his car, possessive and warm through. The thin fabric of her dress, Emma shivered, but not from the cold. Second thoughts. Nathan's voice was low, intimate. Third and fourth thoughts, Emma admitted. But I'm still getting in the car. Good. He opened the passenger door for her. I'd hate to think I was losing my touch. As the city lights blurred past the windows, Emma wondered if she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life, or the most exciting decision she'd ever made. Either way, there was no turning back now. Asterisk. Nathan's penthouse was a temple to success and isolation. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a god's-eye view of Manhattan. The city sprawling below like a circuit board of light and ambition. The furniture was expensive, impersonal, chosen by someone who understood aesthetics but not comfort. "It's beautiful," Emma said, accepting the glass of wine he offered. The vintage was probably worth more than her monthly rent, and completely soulless. Nathan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Most people are impressed. Most people are. Easily bought. Emma walked to the windows, pressing her palm against the cool glass. "You can see everything from up here. But you can't touch any of it. I can buy most of it. It's not the same thing." She turned to face him, wine warming her blood, making her bold. "When's the last time you walked through Central Park?" "Really walked, not in a car with bulletproof glass." "I don't have time for walks in the park." "You have time for whatever you choose to have time for." Emma set down her wine, moving closer to him. "The question is, what do you choose?" Nathan's control was legendary in boardrooms across 3 continents. But something about this woman stripped it away, layer by layer. She stood within arm's reach, close enough that he could smell her perfume mixed with something uniquely her, close enough to touch. "I choose not to be vulnerable," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. Too late for that. Emma's fingers traced the lapel of his jacket. "You were vulnerable the moment you called me about the suitcase. You could have sent an assistant, could have handled it through lawyers, but you called yourself." Her touch burned through the expensive fabric. Nathan caught her wrist, thumb pressing against her pulse point. Racing. She was as affected as he was, Emma. Her name was a warning. No. She stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. "This is a terrible idea. You're dangerous. I'm smart enough to know better, and I don't care." Nathan's last thread of control snapped. His mouth crashed down on hers, hungry, desperate. 5 years of isolation and carefully maintained barriers crumbling in an instant. Emma responded with equal fervor, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. They moved together toward his bedroom, a dance of clothing discarded and barriers stripped away. Nathan's hands mapped the curves he'd been imagining all day, and Emma's soft sighs drove him to the edge of madness. Later, as they lay tangled in sheets worth more than most people's cars, Emma traced patterns on Nathan's chest. The room was dark except for the city lights filtering through the windows, casting them both in silver and shadow. "Tell me something true," she whispered. Nathan's arm tightened around her. In the darkness, with her body warm against his, the truth felt safer somehow. "I've never brought a woman here before." Emma lifted her head to look at him. "Never? This is my sanctuary. My fortress. I don't let people inside." "Then why me?" Nathan's fingers tangled in her hair. "'Cause you looked at my suitcase full of expensive things and called it intimidating instead of impressive. Because you make me want things I convinced myself I didn't need." Emma's heart clenched at the raw honesty. In his voice, this was Nathan without the armor, without the corporate mask. Vulnerable and real and more dangerous than ever. "What kind of things?" she asked, though she was afraid of the answer. "Connection. Trust." His thumb traced her lower lip. "Someone who sees me instead of my bank account." Emma kissed his thumb, then his palm. "I see you. Do you?" Nathan's voice went hard suddenly, and Emma felt the shift in his mood like a change in atmospheric pressure. "Do you see the man who's destroyed companies to build his empire? Who's crushed competitors without a second thought?" "I see a man who keeps lavender dreams on his nightstand." Emma gestured to the small glass jar he'd apparently brought from the office. "Who spent an hour reading my sketches because he was curious about my philosophy on windows and light." Nathan's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He ignored it. It buzzed again. "Answer it," Emma said. "It might be important." Nathan glanced at the screen and went very still. "I have to take this." He walked naked to the window, the city lights playing across his skin as he answered. "What is it, Marcus?" Emma couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Nathan's posture change. The lover disappeared, replaced by the corporate predator. When he turned back to face her, his expression was unreadable. "I have to go," he said, already reaching for his clothes. At 2 in the morning. Business emergency. But he wouldn't meet her eyes. Emma sat up, suddenly feeling exposed in ways that had nothing to do with her nudity. What kind of business? Emergency? Nothing that concerns you? The dismissal stung more than it should have. Emma pulled the sheet around herself like armor. Right, I forgot. I'm just the distraction. Nathan paused in buttoning his shirt. Emma, that's not what this is, isn't it? She stood, gathering her scattered clothes with as much dignity as she could muster. I should go. Stay. The word came out harder than he'd intended. I'll be back in a few hours. I don't think so. Emma was already pulling on her dress, her movements sharp with hurt and anger. This was fun, Nathan. Thanks for the wine and the view. She was halfway to the door when his voice stopped her. Emma, wait. She turned, hoping to see some sign of the vulnerable man who'd held her in the darkness. Instead, she found Nathan Cross. Billionaire CEO, watching her with calculating eyes. My driver will take you home. The offer felt like a slap. Emma lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of pride her working-class childhood had taught her. I'll get my own ride. She walked out of his penthouse and into the elevator, her heart breaking with each floor that passed. By the time she reached the lobby, she'd convinced herself that whatever she'd thought she'd seen in Nathan Cross had been a mirage. Men didn't fall for interior designers from Brooklyn. They collected them, played with them, and moved on to the next shiny thing. But as Emma stood on the sidewalk waiting for her Uber, she didn't know that Nathan was standing at his window 42 floors above, watching her go and hating himself for letting her. And she definitely didn't know about the folder Marcus had delivered. The one marked with her name and containing information that would change everything between them. 3 days passed in radio silence. Emma threw herself into work, redesigning a Soho loft with the kind of focused intensity that usually helped her forget everything else. But Nathan Cross wasn't so easily erased. His scent lingered on her sheets. His touch haunted her dreams. She was selecting fabric samples when her phone rang. Nathan's number, but not his voice. Miss Sterling, this is Marcus Webb, Mr. Cross's assistant. He'd like to see you tonight. 8 o'clock at his office. I'm busy, Emma lied. He said you'd say that. He also said to tell you it's about your father. The fabric samples scattered to the floor. Emma's father had died when she was 16, taking all the family's secrets with him. What about my father? 8 o'clock, Miss Sterling. Cross Industries, 42nd floor. The line went dead, leaving Emma staring at her phone with ice spreading through her veins. Nathan's office was exactly what she'd expected. Glass and steel and the kind of view that made mortals feel small. He stood silhouetted against the city lights, hands clasped behind his back, every inch the corporate titan. You came, he said, without turning around. Your assistant mentioned my father. That was a low blow, even for you. Nathan finally faced her, and Emma's breath caught. He looked terrible, exhausted, haunted, like a man who'd been fighting demons and losing. I'm sorry, he said, and the simple words carried the weight of genuine regret. About everything, about how I left that night, about what I'm about to tell you. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. What are you talking about? Nathan picked up a manila folder from his desk, thick official looking, with her name typed on a white label. Your father was Robert Sterling, correct? Worked construction for Morrison Development until his death 16 years ago. How do you know that? His voice was barely a whisper. Because Morrison Development was one of my first acquisitions. Nathan set the folder on the coffee table. Between them, and because Robert Sterling didn't die in an accident, the room tilted. Emma gripped the back of a chair, her knees suddenly unsteady. What? He was killed. Murdered to cover up a money laundering scheme that would have brought down half the construction companies in the city? Nathan's voice was clinical, detached, but his eyes burned with something that looked like guilt. The Morrison family had him eliminated because he discovered their operation and threatened to go to the police. Mind reeling. That's not possible. He died in a fall. Safety equipment malfunction. Safety equipment that was deliberately sabotaged. Nathan opened the folder, revealing photographs, police reports, financial documents. I've been investigating Morrison Development for 3 years, building a case to destroy them completely. Your father was the key witness who never got to testify. Emma stared at the papers through a haze of shock and fury. Her father's death hadn't been an accident. He'd been murdered, and she'd spent 16 years believing otherwise. Why are you telling me this? She asked, her voice hollow. Nathan moved to the window again, unable to meet her eyes. Because I'm going to destroy Morrison Development, strip them of every asset, ruin every family member involved. And I'm going to use your father's case to do it. Good, the word came. Out sharp as broken glass, they deserve to pay. The Morrison family includes Elizabeth Morrison. Nathan's voice went quieter. Your client, the penthouse you've been designing for 3 months, the account that's supposed to launch your career into the big leagues. Emma's world cracked open. Elizabeth Morrison hired me. On my recommendation. The words hit her like a physical blow. Emma stood slowly, the pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. You've been using me, the whole time.
The suitcase?
Mix up the dinner, everything. You orchestrated all of it. The mix-up was real, Nathan said, finally turning to face her. But yes, I've been watching you for months. I knew who you were when I called that night, you son of a bitch. Emma's voice was deadly quiet. Let me fall for you while planning to destroy my career. I never meant for that to happen. Nathan stepped toward her, but Emma backed away like he was radioactive. Emma, what I feel for you is real. What you feel for me. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't feel anything? You're not capable of it? You're just a predator in an expensive suit. That's not true.
Isn't it?
Emma snatched up her purse, the folder of evidence tucked under her arm. You've been planning this for 3 years. My father's death is just another business opportunity. For you, your father deserves justice. And I deserve the truth. Emma's composure finally cracked, tears streaming down her face. Did you laugh about it? Poor little Emma, so grateful for the attention from the big bad billionaire. Please. Nathan reached for her, and she slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. She headed for the door, but Nathan's voice stopped her. I'm going to destroy them anyway, with or without your help. The Morrison family will pay for what they did. Emma turned back, and Nathan saw something in her eyes that made his blood run cold. It's not just hurt or anger, but a kind of cold calculation he recognized because he'd seen it in his own mirror. Then we're going to do this right, she said. I want to be there when their world burns down. I want to look Elizabeth Morrison in the eye when she loses everything. Emma, you don't understand? If you help me, you'll lose the commission, your reputation, everything you've worked for. My father died for the truth. The least I can do is sacrifice my career for it. Emma wiped her tears away, her spine straightening with resolve. Besides, I learned from the best. Isn't that what you do, Nathan? Destroy people who get in your way? Nathan flinched. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, and now you're going to live with that. Emma opened the door, pausing in the threshold. I'll help you destroy them, but afterward, we're done. I never want to see you again. She walked out, leaving Nathan alone in his glass tower, with the city lights and the bitter taste of victory turned to ash. 3 months later, the Morrison empire crumbled in a single day. Federal agents seized assets, arrested family members, and exposed a corruption network that reached into the highest levels of city government. The story dominated headlines for weeks. Morrison money laundering, empire exposed, construction. Workers' murder 16 years ago brings down criminal dynasty. Emma watched it all from the gallery of the federal courthouse, sitting next to the prosecutor as Elizabeth Morrison was led away in handcuffs. Justice for Robert Sterling, finally. Served cold. Nathan found her outside the courthouse afterward, standing in the autumn rain without an umbrella. It's over, he said. Yes, it is. Emma didn't look at him. All of it. Emma, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that what happened between us was real. You changed me. She finally turned to face him, and Nathan saw that the woman who'd called him out in a coffee shop was gone. In her place stood someone harder, colder, someone who'd learned his lessons too well. You're right, Emma said. You don't deserve forgiveness, but you gave me something more valuable. What's that? Emma's smile was sharp as winter. Taught me that love is just another weapon. And I'm a very quick learner. She walked away through the rain, leaving Nathan standing alone on the courthouse steps. He'd won everything he'd wanted. Justice for Robert Sterling, the destruction of his enemies, revenge served with compound interest. But as he watched Emma disappear into the crowd, Nathan realized he'd lost the only thing that had ever mattered. In the end, the fortress he'd built to protect himself had become his prison. And the woman who might have freed him was gone forever, taking with her the lavender dreams and emergency chocolate that had made him remember what it felt like to be human. The city lights glittered below his penthouse windows that night, beautiful and distant and cold. Nathan Cross had everything he'd ever wanted and nothing he'd ever needed. And Emma Sterling was out there somewhere learning to build her own fortress, brick by bitter brick. The end.